Hi everybody, this is Oksana, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make this wire wrapped tumbled gemstone pendant. And I get a lot of requests for tumbled stones because I think tumbled stones can be a lot easier to find than cabochons, which mostly have to be purchased online, but tumbled stones you can find usually in kind of local shops. And they can be quite tricky to wrap because, as you can see, tumbled stones have a very uneven, odd shape. And so in this video I'm going to walk you through how to wrap a tumbled stone. So let's get started. So the tumbled stone that I'm using is about an inch, just a tiny bit less than an inch, maybe about 20 millimeters. And the reason I selected this particular tumbled stone is because I think that this type is the hardest to wire wrap. Some tumbled stones can be kind of similar to cabochons. They got some flatness to them, or at least like a good flat side that you can use as the front. But the hardest, I find ones like these that are really thick, and it's just hard to capture them and hard to get them to be secure. So I thought this would be a good one to demonstrate on. And for comparison, this is a cabochon. It's nice and flat. It's got a domed side, and then it's got a flat back. And you would, wrap it like this. So just for comparison. Also, this is quite a small tumbled stone as well, which maybe that'll present more challenges. So I just kind of wanted to troubleshoot wrapping all the different, aspects of wrapping a tumbled stone. So the first thing, the wire that I'm going to use, I'm sorry if I sound a little bit stuffy, I'm getting over a cold. So I have my 22 gauge half round wire from Rio Grande. That's going to be my connecting wire. And then for my base wire, I've got my 20 gauge square copper wire from Rio Grande. These are dead soft. So I'm going to be using actually 5 pieces of wire as opposed to the 3 base wires that I typically use for the majority of my designs. So I cut myself 5 pieces and they're 9 inches long. Here's what they look like, and the reason for this is that with the tumbled stone having so much thickness to it, to trap it in into a frame, we're going to be using the frame technique, is just really hard to do with only 3 base wires. You need more wires for thickness because the stone itself is, as you saw, it's very thick. It's not flat at all like a cabochon. So I'm gonna grab the middle, just line them all up on top of each other. Since they're square, they just kind of go two, and one piles up on top of the other because of those flat sides that the square wire has. And then I'm just grabbing my half round wire and I'm wrapping it the flat side down. So first I'm just wrapping my little end around like this, and then once I run out of end and you start working with the wire that's still connected to the spool, you just want to guide it with your hand and then turn the base wires. You don't want to wrap this around and around because it'll get twisted because it's still connected to the spool. It's different than working with the little end there. So now that you have a nice band here of the wire, you just want to trim it on the same side so that our wire ends, when we squish them down, are here on the same side. And then we're just going to squish everything. Make it nice and flat. And then just kind of use your pliers to just bring it together nicely so there isn't any big gaps. So here's what we have so far. The next step is to figure out which is going to be the face of your tumbled stone. can be hard because there's lots of different sides. I'm just gonna go with this side here, and I'm gonna position it like this so it has like the little point pointing down. It's kind of like a rectangular shape. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just put a little bend into here since it has the little point on the bottom. And then the point can rest in there. Then you take your wires and you just try to shape them around the stone like this. Can get a little tricky because it's slippery. Tumbled stones can be a lot more slippery than cabochons. But basically, your goal is to just kind of push this frame around your stone as much as you can. And then your wires here, you just want them to kind of meet up at the top. Like this. So now we can take that stone out and then make sure your wires are lined up nicely. Like if one of mine is crisscrossing, for example, I'm just going to move that and just have them all next to each other nicely so there isn't any wires that are like in the wrong order. You know, they're all coming across this way. Might be hard because we have a lot of wires here. There we go. All right, so it may take a little bit of tinkering, but ultimately you want all your wires just kind of straight coming across. And then, oh, I just let go and mine all moved out of place already. There we go. And then you want it to just be one on top of the other. So I'm just gonna grab my wire again, my half round wire. I'm just gonna give it a little wrap with the end that I grabbed, because you want that to just stay together. And then we're just gonna grab this little wire end, we're just gonna pull it through. Just kind of pressing on this. And we can trim off that little wire end. Oh, a little fuzzy from my blanket. All right. So we're just gonna push on that little wire end. All right, so now they're all connected and you don't have to hold it. So what I'm gonna do, we have a lot of wires here to work with as opposed to the usual 3 on each side. So I'm gonna bring these 2 forward, then I'm gonna bring the next 2 forward, and then the others I'm just gonna push back a little bit like this, because I'm gonna make my bail, but instead of these front wires being the bail like I normally do, I'm gonna leave them for some decorative swirls, and I'm gonna make these the bail. So continuing with this wire, I'm just gonna bring it around and start wrapping it around these 2 wires. So again, I'm just kind of guiding it with my right hand, and then with my left hand I'm twisting the whole piece here. And so you just want to continue to do this for a little bit, and that'll form your bail. However, you know, big or tall you need your bail to be. Some people may prefer larger bails. All right, so once the bail is long enough for you, you just want to trim your wire here on the back and just press it down. And before we go any further with this, I'm gonna go ahead and trap my stone. This is a little green Aventurine, by the way, in case you're wondering what kind of stone it is. So I'm gonna trap it in the frame before we continue. So this is why we need all of these wires, because look how much it sticks up here in the back. So on the back, we're just going to just hold it because then it's going to pop out the front. But we're just bringing these wires onto the back of the stone. And it's good to do this now before you finish off all that top portion. Because once you finish off this top portion, these wires will be less movable. Like right now I'm pulling on this and it's kind of pulling through here. But if they're all, like if we cut them and done stuff with them, then it'll be much harder. You won't be able to move them onto the back as much as I'm doing here now. All right, so doing this kind of traps it, and then the second wire as well. That's why it's so handy that we have 5 wires here. All right, so this is the back. And then if you look closely, can you see the little gaps? So because the stone is so uneven, little gaps might be formed, and you want to press your wire down so that your wire is touching the stone. You actually want to do that throughout, because the wires are going to end up moving as we're working on this. So on the front, I'm just wedging my pliers in here, and I'm just putting a bend, as well as in the next wire here, just putting a bend in there. And then we still have these 2 wires on the side, so you can leave them. See how your stone's feeling. Mine's actually feeling really secure, but you could also put a bend in these next wires here if you wanted to. Say your stone sticks up a little more at the front. Like mine has a relatively flat front, but maybe yours doesn't. Maybe you want to do a little more bends, and then just press everything down so it's against your stone. So once your stone is feeling good, it's feeling secure, you can use this technique as well for round stones like marbles, because you can see the stone is, you know, has so much thickness to it. And if you imagine a marble in this kind of frame, it would work well. So everything is good. We're gonna come here, and this little group of wires here in the back, it's really 3 wires coming this way, and then 3 wires on the other side. We just want to separate them because we're going to attach our bail, and those wires are going to get in our way. So for the bail, just going to make it into its little bail shape and putting the wire ends through that hole there, and then just kind of pushing. You can use like a pencil or some bail making pliers to help you make that curve if you're having trouble with it. And then we're taking the little wire ends that came out the top here, and we're bringing them to the back. So here's what it looks like from the front, and then here's those wire ends on the back. So what we're gonna do there is we're just gonna trim the little ends, and I left myself just a little bit here because we're gonna take that little bit and we're gonna tuck it inwards and tuck it in there. That's how we're gonna get rid of those pokey little wire ends and hide them away, and then just press that in there. All right, and on the other side as well, same thing. Now you have a lot of wires here because of that whole 5 wire thing. So there's a lot of options. If you like swirls and loops, feel free to do that. You can make a lot a lot of swirls with all these wires. But I'm actually going to try and keep this relatively simple for those that, you know, like something a little more simpler. I will make a swirl with these frontmost wires that I left here, but these 3 and 3 on each side, I'm just going to get rid of them. And this way you get to see, you know, you get to see both how to get rid of extra wires that you don't need, and then also just making a swirl. So what I'm doing is I'm putting a bend with my pliers and I'm pushing them down. I feel like doing that helps you push them down more rather than, say I wanted to push them down and I just started bending them like this. See how I'm bending them and I'm trying to push them, but then see this, there's kind of a big gap there. That's why I prefer this other way. Then I'm just going to trim them. And then you just want to press them down. So they're pressed down and you can't really feel the wire ends. And so same thing here with these 3 wires. Ooh, one of them got kind of bent. So with these 3 wires on the other side, we're just gonna put that bend into them as we push them down. I just have to do this other one kind of separately because it got a little bit discombobulated there. All right, and I'm just gonna cut them off. And then just press them down. All right, it's a little bit uneven. They're a little bit higher here and a little bit lower here, but it'll get hidden with the little swirl that I'm gonna do in the front, so it's okay. You can kind of try to even them up if you want, if yours also came out uneven, by just kind of pushing on them with your pliers. There, it's a little better. But now my bail's crooked. All right. So with this wire here, it's coming out the front. I'm just gonna do something simple. I'm just gonna make a swirl like this. And then in the other direction as well. Just like a infinity symbol, figure 8 kind of thing. And then I'm just bringing that to the back. And then just around the back. So you can just trim and tuck it in, or you can have it come back around and then trim it. And I'll just zoom in 1 second. So if you bring it all the way around, these little ends, they need to be like in here, touching the back of that wire. So we're just gonna press them down in there. Otherwise you'll be able to see them from the front, and you don't wanna see the wire ends. So they're tucked away and they're kind of going into this wire here. So then of course you have a lot of other options. You can add like little beads or whatever you want, but I just wanted to make something kind of simple. And of course go over all these wires now, like shake your stone. Is it moving? Mine's moving a tiny bit. You can see some gaps kind of formed there as I've been working with it and moving stuff around. So I'm just gonna go over, press down on all those gaps to have all of these wires tightly against my stone, especially here on the back where it's got most of the thickness. All right, so now it's really secure. It doesn't jiggle in there at all. So that is it. That is a tumbled wire wrapped gemstone pendant. So hopefully this helps you if you like working with tumbled stones. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!